Hi everyone, and welcome to another of my WordPress video tutorials. In this video I'm going to show you how you can put a WordPress blog article together using the Elementor page builder. Now I build websites, WordPress websites for a living, and I would say that 95% of all the WordPress websites I build for myself and for my clients I use the Elementor page builder for. It's a fantastic page builder and very easy to use once you get to grips with it. So here are a couple of example blogs, one on my WordPress website here, and this one I've embedded a tutorial video from there, so you can see that that's embedded and it can be watched there in the blog. Also on my photography website you can see then that I've used Elementor to lay out a nice article with titles, text, images, so you can place the images next to it, a couple of images side by side below, full page images like this, and so on. We can put nice buttons in to link out to other places, in-text links and things like that. So this is really how Elementor is so useful. So obviously the first thing you need is to make sure that you have the Elementor plugin installed. If you haven't, go to plugins, add plugin, just search for Elementor, and you can download the free version of Elementor. Then that's enough to build up your page, and you'll get access to a lot of the useful widgets that you can use. Not all of them, of course. The Pro version will give you much more, and the Pro version will also allow you to build up the whole website and do a whole host of other things. But if you just want to use it for your blog, then the free version is enough. So install the free version and away you go. Once it's installed and activated, then you just simply come up to your posts as you normally would and create a new post. So you can go to add post here, at the top here you can go to new, add post, however you want to do it. When you add a new post, obviously it automatically opens in the WordPress blocks editor or the old classic editor, depending on what you're using. So I mean, the first thing you want to do is give it a title. So what I'm going to do in this example is I'm going to put a blog together for my most recent YouTube video. So I'm going to call it, let's copy and paste that. So I'm going to call it that. So I'm going to save it as a draft. Now, one of the things I would suggest that you do, let's go back to the WordPress editor here. When you're first getting the grips with Elementor or any other page builder really, it's a good idea to create a test post. So what you can do is, same thing, add a new post and just call it test post, for example. Now instead of saving it as a draft, now you don't want the test post to be visible on your website, of course, because this is the one you're going to use to play around and learn with. So you're going to make mistakes or you're going to mess things up, but the whole point is that you use it to practice. So instead of saving it as a draft, what you can do is come up here to status and switch it to private. Now that's what I normally do, and then you save, and then every time you save the article it will always be private and you'll never accidentally publish it, because sometimes when you've got an article in draft you can sometimes accidentally publish it and you might not realize you've done it. So the last thing you want is that to be live on your site. So make it private, and that way it will never be visible and you can do whatever you want to practice and play around. So that's my advice to you when learning. So let's go back to my article. So once you've saved it as a draft and given it a title, then the next thing is to open it in Elementor. So at first, if we go back again here, when you hover over here you're only ever going to get the edit button, but you can see down here these articles have already opened them in the Elementor editor and they're already done that way. So when I hover over here I get the edit button, but I also get the edit with Elementor button. So if I do that, it's going to take me straight into the Elementor editor. Okay, but don't worry, if I still click the edit, it will open up in the WordPress editor, but you'll see that the blocks or the classic editor is no longer available, and you've got this big edit with Elementor button. So that means that you've already converted your blog to an Elementor blog, and so you can't do any more editing in here, which you wouldn't want to do, of course. So you would click this then to open it up and then continue editing in the Elementor editor. Now, one thing I should warn you about, once you've done that, be careful of this button here, back to WordPress editor. A lot of my clients accidentally click that because they think it's taking them back to the WordPress dashboard. But no, if you click back to WordPress editor, you'll get this warning. Please note that you are switching to WordPress default editor, and your content design and layout may break, which it will do because you're breaking it, you're disconnecting it from the Elementor editor. So if you do that, this is what happens. But don't worry, if you accidentally do that by mistake, all you got to do is click the edit with Elementor again, and that's it. Now it's back. So that's it. That's very simple piece of advice for you. So for the first time, let's go back to edit and edit with Elementor. Okay, so now I've opened it. Now you'll notice here I've got this bit already here at the top. Now that's because if you see here I've got edit single post. Now that's because I'm using Elementor Pro, and I've created a template, a global template for my blogs, which will automatically then populate this top area here, and it will show what I've decided to show. So it will show the title. So because I've already entered the title, it's now showing me the title, and I've got this here by default. And then it will show an excerpt. So as soon as I put an excerpt in here, it will appear here, and a featured image. Now there's no featured image here because I haven't created the featured image. So the first thing you want to do is create a featured image. So I'm going to upload my featured image. So here's my featured image. This is the one I'm going to use. So I'll upload this, and I'll also, this is very important, in alt text, titles and captions, you want to put something here and optimize it for what you want the search engines to find you for, which is basically in this case the title of the article. So I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to set that. Now I'm going to save the draft, and in this case I'm going to refresh the page, so I can, now you'll see that that featured image will appear here. Now that's because I've set this template to do that. Okay, now that's for another video, so I'm not going to show you how, but I'm going to show you in this video how you add images and everything. So if you want to manually do this yourself, you can do. So on to building your blog in Elementor. You'll see this area down here. This says drag widget here. Now this is the editable region on your page. Now again, as I said, I've set up a global template. So you'll see if I hover over this area here, it says edit single post. If I click that, then I'm going to edit the global template. So any changes I make on here will be changed across all of my blogs. So if you've got this set up, be careful of this. Same down here. This is also part of the template, so you see that nothing's happening. If I try to hover over it, if I wanted to edit this, I can't. Same down here in the footer. The footer comes up. So the editable region is here. If you come over to this plus button and click this, it will bring you up all of your widgets here. So this section, you've got globals, and I got SEO, but don't worry about that. This is what you want, the widgets or elements, whatever you want to call them, whether you want to call them widgets or elements. These are basically all of the elements that you can drag into your page and customize. So you can drag in an image, you can drag in a heading, a text editor, a video in my case. You've got buttons, you've got a button, divider, Google Maps. So these are, and then as you come down, if you've got the Pro version, you've got all these extra ones too, and various other things like that. So we're just going to concentrate on this basic stuff for now, to just put a basic blog together. And the other thing you need here, layout, is a container. So basically you're going to create containers, and within those containers you're going to place widgets or elements. So you can actually create multiple containers. So you don't want to put everything in just one container. You can actually create multiple containers so you can control the layout better. Now you've got a basic container, which is also known as a flexbox container, which you can then adjust the width, height, and you can also adjust how the elements flow inside the container. Or you can create a grid. Now a grid, if we drag the grid in, so any grid or container, you can drag it in. There are two ways to do it. You can drag a container or a grid into it, or you can click this plus button and it gives you the options. What do you want to insert here? Do you want to insert a flexbox or a grid? Okay, so there's two ways of doing it. If we do a grid, then it comes up with these options, so you can say what you want. So I want this one, for example, and then it automatically inserts the grid like this. Let's delete that. Same for the flexbox. You can then choose how the elements will flow. So the elements will flow downwards one after another, or they will flow across. Or you can then select a structure. So you can have a container that's split into two columns like this, 4 columns like this. So you can choose one of the predefined ones, or you can select this to create your own. Same thing again here. If we do that, now we've got 4. Okay, now the difference between the container and the grid, if you notice, the grid only gives you equal size. So you've got one below each other like this. The grids are always going to be the same size, whereas with a flexbox you can have each column can be sized individually. So this one, for example, if we click this one, now you can see up here it's got 33% width and 66% width, and you can adjust that as well. So I can say that I want that to be 40, and I want that to be 40. Now I've got a bit of space over here, so then I can come here, I can click and duplicate that widget, or let's delete that. I can either duplicate it to make an exact same one, or I can add a new container. So now you see, now it's done it automatically at 100. So I could say I can make that 20, I can make that 40, and I can make that 40, or vice versa. I can make that 10, I can make that 50, sorry, and I can make that 40. So now I've got 3 like this. So that's the advantage of the containers. I can make them different sizes if I want to. Let's delete that. With a grid, say we've got 4 like this. Now I can insert an element into the grid like this, but only one element in each column. See, if I try to insert another element into the same column, it pushes everything across. Like a video, just pushes everything across. So I can only insert one element inside each grid column. But there is a way around that. If you want to insert multiple, let's close this and create another one again. If I want to insert multiple elements inside the grid, then I can come up here, I can drag a container, a nested container, inside the grid. Then if I do that, then you'll see that I can drag multiple elements into that container inside the grid. So that's a little workaround there. A flexbox, if you just use a flexbox from the outset, then you can add multiple elements inside the container like this. So let's look at the container, shall we? So let's drag a container across. Now we've got a single container. Now with containers and widgets, whatever you insert, if you go up to the top here, you've got, with a container first of all, you've got layout, then you've got style, and then you've got some advanced features. So we're only going to look at the layout and the style, and we can look a bit at the advanced too. So you notice also that with a container or a grid, you can actually switch it between a grid and a flexbox. So that's really, really useful. So if you drag something in, for example, and then you change your mind, you can switch it between the two. So the layout for the container, you can choose it to be boxed, in which case you see that you can adjust the width of whatever you put into it. See? So if we have it like that, so we put an image. Let's just let me drag an image in there for now, something like this. So if I want to resize what's inside the container, I can do it this way. Or if we click like this is using the default that I've set in the theme, the Elementor theme settings. Or I can switch it to full width. And if I do that, then it's going to always stretch the full width of the screen, or the full width that I've got set. Yeah, I've got this in a 1400 pixel wide container, the whole page. So it's going to stretch to the full width of the container that I've set. If you've set your page container to be full width, it will stretch the full width of the page. So we can also set a minimum height. You can see, so if I wanted it to be bigger than that, then I can adjust that accordingly, and that way it will always set the minimum height of the container. Obviously if elements in there push it further down, it will do. So if you can see, for example, I can pull it down. If I try to make it a minimum height 300, it's going to be more than 300 because the image I've inserted is more than 300 deep. But if I remove that image, now you'll see that it's resized. So now you see that with nothing in there, I can set a minimum height. If you want to set the height of the container to be the full height of the screen it's being viewed on, and that means that it will respond to the screen that it's being viewed on, you come to VH and you set it to 100. Now you see it's always going to be the full height of the screen itself. Otherwise you can just leave it like this and it will adjust according to what you put inside it. Now let's come down here. You've got items. Now here you control how the items will flow inside the container. So I'm going to put in the start of my article here. I'm going to put, again, let's just put this title here for now, for example. And I'm going to drag in my image again, and I'm going to insert the image. Now you can see now that by default everything is just flowing one after another. If I select it to be horizontal, now it's going to flow this way. If I select it to be row reversed, it's swapping everything around. If I select it to be column reversed, it's going to put it this way, or column vertical this way. Okay, so that's how you decide how everything flows inside the container. Down here we can choose how we justify the content. So we can left align it, we can centralize it. Now, so to show this to effect, if we click on the header widget, come to advanced, we can come to width, set a custom width. So just so we can see the effect of this, I'm going to make this header 30%, and I'm going to come across here and I'm going to set this to be 30% as well. So now we've got everything smaller. Now we come back and click. If you ever want to select elements, when you hover over them, you'll get this pink outline with a pencil. So what that means is if you click here, it will open up the features on the left that you can adjust for that element. and same here. If you hover over a container, you'll get a grey outline. So you'll get this little grey square in the corner. If you click on it and then you've got the grey outline, that means that the container's selected and you've got all the options on the left for the container. So if we do that, now we've made those smaller. Now you can see more easily. See, if I click this, I've justified the content to the left, I've centered the content, or I've pushed it this way, or we can do space between, we can do space around, or space evenly. So these are really, really useful features. Now we can align the items. So if we're going to align them to the top, or align them to the bottom, align them in the center, or stretch. So if you've got multiple, if we put it this way, for example, so same sort of thing, center it however you want. So we justify the content, centered there. Now you've put everything nicely in the center if that's how you want to use it. Gaps, here you can choose, these are gaps between the elements within your container. So if we make it 60, for example, we can make it 100, 200. Now you can see that this is setting the gap between all of the elements inside your container. If you want to add another element, let's add a button, for example. There, you can see the same thing. We made it 200, 50, 200, 300, however you want to space them. If you put it on there, it will just use the defaults. Same thing again, left, right, space them out. So here we space between, here we've spaced everything evenly, and here we've kind of put space around it. Okay, now if you want to move anything around, you just do like this. See, it can be a little fiddly sometimes, but you can see how, there we go. If I wanted to just move things around like this. Okay, now we've done that, but you probably don't want them flowing this way, do you? You probably want something a little different. So this is where the next feature comes in. If you've got a directional flow, horizontal or row reversed, then if you want them to be always in a line like this no matter what, then you make sure that the wrap or no wrap is turned off. So in this case, when there's no wrap, it will always flow, it will always stay within the container. If you try to make this 100, make this 100, and you make this 100, and you can see no matter what you do, they're always going to stay in a row. But if you want them to wrap, then you select wrap. Now there are 100. Now they're flowing like this, but we don't want it like that, do we, necessarily? So what we're going to do again is go back. So if we put that back to its custom 30, 30, 30. Okay, now what I can do here is say, alright, I want that on the top, and then I want these two down here next to each other, and then I can justify it to the end, and now I've got the button next to the image like this. So if I want to add in a bit of text next to this, I'm going to come over to my video here, and I'm going to copy my text from here, come back, and I'm going to go to add element, and in this case I'm going to add a text editor. So I'm going to just pull it in here for now. And when you add in the text editor, again on the left, this is where you add your text. So I'm going to delete that, paste in my text just as it is for now, and then if I want to expand and edit that text, I can do that this way. So the text editor works very much the same way as the WordPress classic editor. I can just lay out my text accordingly. So in this case, this is what I do. Just put in everything like this, lay it out as I would want it to be. It's just enough for now, just to give you a bit of an example. Let's save the draft again. Now I've got these elements in. Now when you automatically insert it, by default it's going full width. So decide where you want to lay it out. I'm going to put it here, and then select the element, come over to my width, and let's say I'll make that 50. Now I'll make this 50. Now you notice that 50/50, it's wrapped it to the other end, and that's because of the spacing. So it's not going to be exactly 50% because we've got some spacing. So what you can do is make that 48, for example, and now I've put those two on the same line, and this one is now pushed down onto the next line. If I want to, like up here, you see that I've made that 100. By making that 100, I forced this to always be on its own. If I didn't, then I would get this problem. So I want the title to be on the top always with nothing else, so I make that 100%. Then I make this 48. Now you can also set by pixel dimension as well, or percentage, or other things like that. So basically you're going to size the width of each element so they flow inside the container like this. There you go. Simple. But if, for example, let's say for example I want the button to be underneath here. Now this way you can't do that, so what you need to do is come up here, drag in a container, so you can nest one container inside another. So that's really useful. And then you can do the same thing, make it 50. Now you can see I've got a container, and inside that nested container I can now drag two elements. Now if I make those 100%, because that's going to be 100% inside the container, now I've got those two lined up nicely. So if I want to put elements like this, then I need to put them inside a container within a container, so to speak. So I don't want this to be an image, I want this to be my video. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to drag in a video element. And if I come to my video, go to your video, grab the share button, copy the link, then come in here, and over here on the left you'll see, if we get rid of that, you've got the URL that you can paste in. Make sure you've got YouTube, or if it's on Vimeo or somewhere else, select the source, add the link in, and now you can see it's embedded that video in nicely. Down here you've got all the options, player controls, autoplay. I never recommend that you autoplay a video. There's nothing more annoying than when you open a web page, it starts playing a video that's not visible in the port when you first load, and people go, what the hell's going on? It's better to not do that. I personally turn it off. Okay, and you've got all these other options. Now down here you've got the video overlay. Now it's automatically inserted it, but it won't always do that. So if you turn that on, then same thing there, insert your video overlay. Okay, image resolution, you can always set the image resolution here. So if your image is 2000 pixels but you're only showing it this size here, you don't want it to load a 2000 pixel image, so you can then size that down to something more reasonable. It makes it a much smaller image. You can choose to have the play icon on or off, entirely up to you. Here you can actually change. You've got a default icon if you want, or you can go to the icon library and choose a different one if you want. So let's choose that one, for example, or that one, or this one, or just put the default one there. Okay, and you can choose to open in a lightbox or not, so that's really cool. So you can then open the video in a lightbox so they can view it larger. So back to the text element. One of the problems you get with a text element is if you put a bulleted list in there, then on to the next page, you'll see that you don't get the spacing between. It's actually really annoying. So what I do is, if I do that, I end my text here, and I will insert a new text element and put the next lot inside that new text element. Now in this case I want it to be like this. So as I showed you before, then what I'm going to have to do is drag in another container for that. So I'm then going to drag that in, and I'm going to drag this container here. Again, I'm going to switch it to full width and set it to 48. Now I want to put this one back to full width because I've put it inside a nested container. Now what I can do is come over here. Now the easiest way to do that, if you've already got the text inside, what I do is duplicate it. Then come over here, and now I can just delete everything up to there, and then the same here, I can delete everything here. Now you see I've actually got it more nicely spaced. So that's a quick way around that. Now, as I said, not everything has to be in the one container. You don't want to do that, because then you end up with a lot of problems trying to, as you see, trying to get it to flow and everything. So really you want to create everything in sections. So you see that always when you've inserted a container, you've always got this no matter what. So here you can come down here and just say, well, I'm going to add a new container. So you can create separate containers for each section. So if you've got each titled section, then you can create another container down there and just repeat the same process as I showed you before. Let's get rid of that. Now, one of the advantages to Elementor is that obviously web pages now are not only viewed on the computer, but they're viewed on tablets and mobiles too. So if you come up to the top bar here, you can see that you've got these responsive modes. Now you'll see that the layout that we've done here, if we go to tablet, it doesn't look very nice, does it? And if we go to mobile, it's not so bad. It's automatically flowed it. So the advantage to this is that you can actually set everything I've shown you. If you set it in each mode, it sets it individually. So, you know, if we do something like this, let's go back to this, let's make it 40. Now we've got that side by side, but that doesn't look right on a tablet, does it? It's too small, it looks odd, it's horrible. So we don't want that. What you want to do is, in that case, let's make it like this, 100%. Or, and then we can come over here and make everything flow horizontally like this, and then we just resize everything accordingly. Now this looks better, doesn't it, on a tablet, and the same here on the mobile. So we can customize everything. Now one problem you see with text down here is it flows off the edge, especially when it's a link like this. We're going to fix that in a minute. So you can see there we can and then make our layouts independently in each mode, in tablet and mobile. So let's come back here. So let's just very quickly, when you're going to put text links in, so I'm going to make that a text link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that text link, and then I'm going to come up here, highlight this, and then click the insert text link, paste that, and then come over to these link options. Now this is a sponsored link, an affiliate link, so I want to open it in a new tab, but I'm also going to add these two, which is a mandatory requirement if this is an affiliate link. So I'm going to do that, then I'm going to click update. Now I can get rid of that and just have a simple text link, so I don't need to show these whole URLs. So let's do the same here. Copy, paste, in this case all three. Same thing here. I can also cut kill two birds with one stone. Paste. That's done. Okay, now that's nicer, isn't it? Now, when I view that in mobile, you see, they don't run off the page like that. So the next set of options, whether it's a container or whether it's an element, is the styling. So for each one you can style it. So if we go to the container, for example, if you click the style button, then you'll see a list of options you've got for styling that container. So if I want to, I can make a background color. Add a background color to the whole thing. See? Like this. Or I can add a gradient. So I've got all these gradient options. I could embed a video into the background, or embed a slideshow into the background. Now obviously in this you don't want to do it, but that can be quite useful for other things. Or I can just simply turn it off. I can have a background overlay, so similar things. In this case, if I wanted to add an image or a color, for example, I can then adjust the opacity of that color. Or if I embed, let's say for example, if we embed a video like this, then I got settings for an image. I got settings for the image, and again I can adjust the opacity if I want to do that. Let's get rid of that. And this is a feature from another plugin, and I've got the border as well. So if I want to set a border, so you can see I can set a solid border of 4 and a border radius, for example. If we then preview that, so I can put a border around my container like this. I can see, I can change the color of that border if I want to. There we go. Let's come back to our border. Default is the default set by your theme, or none if you want to just turn it off completely. You can also create a border shadow. So if I turn that on, now you can see I've got a shadow around the border, and I can combine that, of course, again with a radius. The radius is independent, so I can have a radius like that and a box shadow. Click that to turn it off, click it to turn it on, and make some adjustments here. So if I want to reduce it or horizontal, these are all the options that you got. Or again, just back to default, turn it off if you want to, and delete that. And that's what you can do there. The other thing, the advanced tab, what's really useful, more important to know here, is margin and padding. So if I want to add padding, say if I add a 60% padding like this, or 100% padding, for example. Now when you've got this link button, I've linked all values together, so I've made everything 60, 60, 60. If I don't want that, I have to uncheck that, and then I can set a top padding. I can set each padding individually, so I could have 60 padding on the left, 10 here, and 20 on the bottom. Or if I click that, it just harmonizes all of them together. So that's the padding. Or I can do the same for the margin. Now the margin, as you can see, is very different. The margin sets the margin above the container, whereas the padding sets the padding of within the container itself. So you can control margins and paddings here within the container itself. I'll come into this order in a minute. By default, the order is the way that you drag everything around, but we'll look at that in a minute. It's more useful, I think, for mobile. And we've got some other features. I'm not going to go too much into that now. So that's the same also for a widget. So if you, same thing there, if you click a widget, come to the style, now you can align. If it's a text heading widget, for example, you can set the alignment of it. you can then come to the typography. Now the font family default again is the default you've set by in your theme itself. If you want to override the default, then you can come in here and you can change the font family. You can change the font size. Same thing when it's off like this, is set to default. So here you can adjust the font size, for example, the font weight. Let's make it black. I can transform it to uppercase. I can set italics, underline if you want these things. And then you can, you've got letter spacing. So you basically can edit the styling of that widget itself. Let's go back to default. Get rid of all that. Okay. Yeah, we got blend modes, text color. If I want to change the text color, I can do that here. Again, when you click that, it takes it back to default. Same thing for the text editor, and if you've put a video in, you can change you've got styling options for the video itself, the image overlay, and same thing for a button. If you've inserted a button here, you can, first of all, with the content, for example, I'm going to say watch on YouTube, and again I would come and grab my link and insert the link here. Same thing again, link options. I want to open in a new window. I don't want to add a no follow here because I want it to be followed, so I've got those options there. Then I can come along to the styling. Again, this is styled already. It's all set to the defaults that I've set in the Elementor global theme editor. But if I want to override that, I can. So I can stretch it across, push it to the right, center it, push it to the left, or turn it off for defaults. Again, if I want to change the text in here, I can do. So I've got the typography options. I can add some text shadow if I want to. Now this here, example, if we make that text blue, and then we can also set a hover text. So what will happen is, see, if I hover over, the text color is blue and the text is white when I hover. And now same thing here, the background is set to default, but if I want to override that, let's make it light, and the hover text, I can make it cream. So now you can see, yeah, oh, that doesn't look so right, does it? So let's change the hover text color to this, and the background hover color to this. Same thing again, primary. So you can see these are the options that I've got for that. Or I can turn the background off or on if I want. I can add a border color. Now if I need to make sure I've got the border set, so come down here, I can set the border color, border size, and I can make it solid, dotted, however you want to make it. Same thing with the radius. So if I want to make it a bigger radius, I can do here. I can set the padding, much like I showed you. Again, turn these links off to change each one independently, and set the border color again in this case. With the border, you don't get separate options with the hover and normal, but you do with the actual button itself. So styling. Now each element has all these styling options here, so you just come to the center button there, and that's the way you go. Now the advanced section here, you notice a slight difference. See, if I set the padding, you see there's a very big difference. I'm not setting the padding for within the button itself, I'm setting the padding around the button. Same thing with the custom width. All of these advanced options sets everything around the button. Down here, this sets the padding for the button itself. So you see the difference there. So let's come back to our content here. Let's adjust that again. So I mentioned earlier an excerpt. The excerpt here will automatically be inserted, but there's nothing there. That's because if we come up to the post settings, you'll see the excerpt here is blank. So you can either take the first part of here, or you can custom write an excerpt, but come up here, insert that, paste that. Now I'm going to save the draft and refresh the page, and then you'll see that that excerpt I've inserted will now appear here. Now the excerpt's important because when you show your post, so let's come up here, if I go to the articles where I've got these little cards showing each article, it shows the title here and the excerpt here if you choose to show it, and then the button link. So the excerpt, it will take it from the custom excerpt that you've created. If you leave that blank, it then creates it from the first part. It takes basically the start of the article. But what happens then is it repeats the title. So that's not good, because you get the title here, and then it repeats the title and then starts from the first paragraph in the blog. So it doesn't look so good. So it's important here to make sure that you create a custom excerpt. So to preview, there we go. I've got it like this. So let's preview how it all looks here. Now again, as I told you, independently I can set this. So I'm going to again, it's got default padding, so I want to override that and 0 it. So I put everything now in line. Same thing here. I'm going to come here, I'm going to 0 that, and now in tablet mode I've got everything nicely lined up. Let's go again to here, and typically what you set in the tablet mode, it by default copies that across to the mobile mode. So now you can see when that was set, I think the default here was 20, then it had a lot of gap around there. I don't want that on mobile. I want to, because we've got limited space as it is. So I wanted to either 0 that here, same thing there, 0 that, and now I'm utilizing the full width of the mobile. So basically that's pretty much it. You can see that everything is quite intuitive. You just need to understand the difference between a container and a grid, and then placing elements within containers, and how you can create multiple containers. So you've always got this option down here to drag in, or you can just simply, like for example, you can simply drag in a container here to get started, or if you just drag in a widget down to here, it will automatically create a container for you. Here we go. So it just creates automatically a standard container for you. So that's the two ways to do it. And then here you've got a variety of elements that you can use inside your blog to start piecing it together. So you've got spacer, icon, various things. If you've got the Pro version, then you've got all these other features, for example, or below the Pro, if we minimize the Pro, if you don't have Pro, there's more down here. General, you've got tabs. You can pull this across and you can create a tabbed section, accordions, tabs, accordions, image box. So you've got all these elements down here. I'm not going to go over them all. That's why I say create a test blog, make it private, and have a play around with all the different elements that you've got here inside Elementor. So it's very simple, drag and drop, and then it's just a case of organizing your content inside, whether it's a container or a grid, how you want it to flow, and then customizing that layout in tablet, mobile, and desktop. Very simple. So I hope you found this useful, and if you did, please give this video a like, Subscribe to my channel for more videos, and I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.